the shadow upon the tempest, the steel elder dragon of wind. He was the flagship monster of Monster Hunter 2, and has rightfully returned in every Monster Hunter game in the series, with the exception of 3rd gen games, but I'll forgive Capcom for that terrible mistake. Like, this is actually just a beautiful dragon. He's straight up just beautiful. Unfortunately, I find that Kushala Daora gets some hate these days, but I want you all to know that I am a Kushala Daora supporter, and I've been a Kushala Daora supporter since day one. This was another recent build, and the physical build here is very, very close to the digital version you get in the instructions. There's some slight changes on the back feet and in some other places, but otherwise they're exactly the same. As always, the instructions and the parts list for this build are available on my Patreon under the 2nd tier membership, alongside all of my other Monster Hunter instructions. As long as you have the 2nd tier membership, you have access to all of my instructions that I've made so far. Alongside that, there's also the Rusted Kushala Daora alternative instructions if you would rather have Rusted Kushala Daora instead. I always make sure to get some variants in there when I can. This model is based on the original model used in 2nd and 4th gen Monster Hunter. The color is matched to his DOS model, with the color blocking being closer to Monster Hunter Stories. For those who've been around long enough, they'll know that there's an extremely minor design change on the wings between the older gen games and the newer 5th gen model in World and Rise. However, the wings on my model don't really reflect either. Kushala Daora's design is very straightforward and easy on the eyes, so he was really fun and actually pretty easy to design. He's all one color for the most part. I should probably quickly discuss the use of chrome pieces. You can kind of see on the model, but there's some pieces here that are shiny. They're like metal, and when I move him, you can see that, yeah, no, they're metal. These are like metal-colored, steel-colored pieces. Those are chrome pieces. On rare occasions, LEGO will release chrome-painted pieces. These are actual chrome-painted pieces. On this model, I used as many chrome pieces that I had available. The model depicted in the instructions, however, utilizes as many chrome pieces I could possibly fit on it. This, however, makes the model extremely expensive, because these steel-colored pieces cost like 3 times the amount that a regular piece does. For those on my Patreon, I included an alternative parts list that replaces all the chrome pieces with just standard light gray, which, if you notice, any place that isn't chrome is standard light gray. So if you want a cheaper model, I also have that available where everything is just standard light gray. It still looks good. It's not quite the same, but please don't overspend on LEGO. I already overspend on LEGO too much. And I don't want any of you to lose all your money on such an addicting hobby. He does look really, really good with the steel, with the chrome pieces, though. Looks fantastic. Let's quickly do a quick size comparison. First, let's bring in a typical LEGO figure, as well as a action figure. In this case, I'm using a random Bionicle. And I have one Gachapon anime figure for comparison's sake as well. On first glance, he seems a little bit smaller than my other Monster Hunter models. Actually, he is quite smaller than some of my other Monster Hunter models, but I think that he's much more accurate in size overall to a LEGO minifigure. He looks kind of small in comparison to something like this action figure, but definitely I think that the LEGO figure is his best comparison. As always, the head is too big, and that's to help give it that chibi, cute look that Monster Stories and the Feline Village games have. Moving on to posability, all the limbs have like full posability, like all the claws can move. It's as posable as you can get with the limbs. Even the back legs, it all moves. The wings on the model can fold out like that, so it can look like he's flying. That's about as far as they can fold out, but I think that this is good enough to sort of get that flying. Like if I were to extend his tail back, yeah. You can get him to be flying pretty easily, actually. The tail can move side to side. Each individual segment is posable. It's It's pretty good. It allows for good tail swipes. Though you can't really pose the tail up without some of these pieces falling off. But I don't think that Kushala even really uses his tail as anything other than just a counterbalance. And it really is a counterbalance. Even in this model, it helps him stand up. So the neck, unfortunately, it can rotate side to side. But going down, that's about as far down as it can go. So it's not like he can bend his whole head down. His whole body, because I know on the actual in-game model, his neck and his chest are kind of all connected. Here I had to take some liberties. I couldn't Lego doesn't allow that sort of fluid connection. So that's as best as I can get. He can't really lift it any higher than that. Really, his best pose is with his head held high anyway. Unfortunately, his mouth cannot open. It doesn't open and close. It's kind of embarrassing. I just couldn't figure out how to get it to work. Kushala doesn't really open his mouth a lot. He doesn't have a whole lot of biting attacks. He does shoot wind out of his mouth, kind of. I don't think he doesn't really open his mouth and have these big crazy roars or anything. So in the end, I was able to just live with it just being permanently stuck open. If any of you want to try and figure out a way of getting it to work, you can. Kushala shouldn't fall apart really easily at all. I think that maybe the head is a little bit fragile, the jaw is a little bit fragile. But otherwise, he's pretty good. You can kind of shake him around. He's not going to just, fall apart. He might be a little bit difficult to play with, just because all of his limbs are, flimsy. They're not going to break, but they definitely are flimsy. So I don't know if he's really the best to play with. I think he's definitely better for posing. He's got some things he can do. But I don't know. I think that overall, because his legs are so flimsy, you're probably better off just sticking to posing with him and not exactly playing with him. Astalos and Brachydios were way better at playing with because their limbs are very sturdy. But these limbs, they're not going to fall apart, but they're going to he's probably going to topple over. If I just do this, you can kind of see they're really wobbly. He can hold himself up pretty easily though. As long as you have all four of the feet planted on the ground, he'll hold up. The tail really helps. He's quite top heavy, but as long as all four of the feet are touching the ground, he'll stand up. He can kind of stand on 2 feet and kind of do the roaring animation that he's known to do in game, but it's not really built for that. He's definitely built just to stand still and look pretty. Oh, his neck also has a tendency to pop off pretty easily, but it's not actually broken. It's pretty easy to just put back together, so overall, I'm pretty happy with this Kushala Daora build. I think if I was building it at a slightly bigger scale, I could probably get some of the details to be a little bit more accurate, but I'm satisfied with it overall. On my Patreon, once again, there's instructions for this model, as well as instructions for rusted Kushala Daora. So if you happen to like rusted Kushala Daora more, feel free to build that one as well, or instead. I think it's actually a little bit cheaper than this one. It's especially cheaper than the full chrome-plated one. So if you want a cheap Kushala Daora model, the rusted one is the way to go. Thoughts on Kushala Daora? Kushala Daora is one of my favorite monsters. Maybe not in my top 10, but it's definitely in my top 15. I'll always say that 2nd Gen Kushala is peak Kushala. Ideally, Kushala should be treated as a puzzle, or a challenge for the player that's unique from other monsters. Kushala served as an introduction to the Elder Dragons, which could control the elements. This was a big deal. It has the ability to control the very air around it, which is a huge step above other animals in Monster Hunter. Suddenly, it's not just an animal, but it's a real force of nature. It's a true monster. I like how in the intro for Monster Hunter 2, Kushala doesn't even have to move to attack the hunters. Even though he's just standing there, he's pushing his enemies away. Ideally, I want this experience to happen in the game itself. I want this monster to be so powerful that the player can't even approach him and they're just afraid. Sadly, this element of him pushing people away with his wind has been lost over the years. They've attempted to replace it with the little tornadoes, but I'll be honest, I don't like them. I think they're tacky in comparison to the terrifying force of a living hurricane. Actually, I despise the little tornadoes. I think they're stupid. It's not the same whatsoever. And I know I'm not alone. There's a lot of people that really don't like the tornadoes. They find them annoying. I really wish Capcom would just double down and make Kushala like an endgame, truly terrifying monster that's just impossible to approach. And then, when the player finally does break through the wind barrier, you can feel that immense satisfaction. That's how it used to be. I'd like them to return to that instead of the way that they're handling it in Rise. Not to say that the fight isn't fun in Rise, I really enjoy it. Bottom line, I prefer fighting it in Monster 2 and Freedom Unite. I think that is a superior battle. Capcom's approach to monster fights has evolved over the years, and I think Kushala Daora is like one of the best examples of illustrating how the change went about, and what the change in the overall game design has been. Now it's more of a battle of give and take between you and the monster. You dodge and you counterattack, but before there was a greater focus on solving the gimmick of the fight. How do you get past Kushala Daora's barrier? It's like you can't even get close to him. Oh well. Just boomer things. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I want to give special thanks to my patrons. Thank you so much for all the support. Again, check out my Patreon for instructions, and there's more builds on the way, actually. Next time, we're going to do a Fanged Beast. And it's a funny one. It's a Rise newcomer. Look at his face! It's a Bishatten? Bin Shatten? It's the monkey. The one that throws the fruit. Yeah, he looks like a Muppet. Okay, well, he's gonna be next, because I have to do a Rise monster. I haven't done a Rise monster yet. Stay tuned for that. Bye, everyone! Bye.